With our new cargo port and dedicated freight rail now operational, thousands of workers are needed daily at the docks. But currently, the nearest town is way too far for a practical commute. This is causing staffing shortages and logistical nightmares. So today, we're going to solve this by building out a large, dedicated community right near the port, complete with housing, shops, schools, and services to support thousands of new residents. As always, we've got a lot of work to do, so let's just jump right in. Alright, welcome back to Ashland, and today I believe we're going to be building out the biggest town we've done so far, at least all in one go, and that's going to be right over here. We have a lot of our industry up here and down here as well, and I would expect a fairly decent sized town in between these two. Taking a look at the jobs here, there's over 1,300 jobs just in our industrial port alone, and we're also going to be adding a fuel plant today. So we'll want to make sure we have enough workers to compensate for this. All right, so let's get started. First things first, I need to be able to see. And in order to see, I need to get rid of all these trees. And now with our trees gone, we can see that we do have a fairly hilly area. It's not too bad, but it's not too great either. And I want to work around most of this, but right up front, I'm going to find some common heights and just flatten some buildable areas. It'll make it just a tiny bit easier to develop on. Like for example, right here. So the difference is probably just barely a meter, but in City Skylines world, that's a lot. I don't want to do this to everything though. I just want to do it enough to make it a bit easier to develop on. And through the magic of editing, we are done. And you can see that I didn't really do anything too dramatic. Really, it's still about following those contour lines, and it's still very hilly, but really, it's just so much better. And nothing was abused too, I promise. No contour lines were abused in the making of this video. And the more I think about this, the more I think we would probably want to have a few retention ponds around here because we're going to be adding a lot of concrete to this area, and it would just make sense to have them. So I'll need to remember this because I can already see a few places where it just really makes sense to have them. Kind of looks like it could have been a pond in the original map's design, but then it wasn't. Okay, time to refocus. We have a lot of tiles that we need to purchase, and I'm worried we might go bankrupt, but let's see how much it's going to cost. So we'll have these ones, plus these three and maybe this one, 7,483,000 per month, and we are currently sitting at a hefty 781,000 per month. So we should be able to afford this no problem. I hope the tile upkeep doesn't bankrupt us, but we'll see, I guess. All right, now I'm wondering, what does that leave us with on a monthly basis? I'm a bit bad at math, so let's take a look and see. About 300K per month, that's not too bad. I kind of miss what we were making before, but honestly, it's a good way to spend money. So now we need to run our roads, our connectors, our arterials, kind of like the foundation for the future cities that'll be here. So we'll want to parallel some of the roads we already have in place. Like for example, this highway road for our port. The only thing that would worry me is how many connections we have in, just because there's a fairly significant slope here. So we'll need to be very careful of where we add them in. And really all we're trying to do here is just keep our traffic off of our main highway. And I want to start defining this area. So I'm going to grab this point right about here, come up about 8 units. And we're going to try and match this tile's edge as much as we can. And I do want it to be 6 units away, or at least this kind of blue circle. So I'm going to consider this a planning or a thinking road for now, just because I do want to start defining this area, and I need some type of road here to do so. All right, then let's delete this little stub right here. I want more setback than that, and we'll come up about 8 units. Then let's pull this back. It doesn't really matter how long we go, but we'll try and mirror the highway. Then we'll extend this just a bit further. And then we're going to come up at a 90 and right into our road. Now ideally, we don't have any roads underneath the water line, and right now we do. So let's use Move It to fix it. All right, and it didn't seem to fix it entirely, but honestly, I don't want to worry about this right now. We have a bunch to do, so let's get our roads in first, and then we can worry about all that stuff after. And really all we want to do is just follow this along as close as we can get it. I think I'll actually add in some control points to help with this. And we can see that where the grid breaks is where there's a slight curve. So if we add in control points by snapping to our zone grid, we can try and make this somewhat parallel. All right, then all we have to do to check to see if it worked is just to see if we can get a straight segment, and we can. Perfect. And can we get a straight segment from this side as well? Yes, we can. All right. And so that pretty much means we're in a perfect parallel at about 8 units. Now we'll pull this back, get rid of our control points, and then connect right in. All right, then on the other side, we're gonna have to add more control points. Otherwise, we are not gonna go very straight and parallel. You can see as we start to cross over into this kind of the highway. So now we're just gonna go and look where the grid breaks, and then we're gonna add another road about 8 units up. And we're gonna pretty much do this for the rest of the parallel road. And now we just gotta delete all of our control points. And then we'll just quickly rework my thinking road into an actual road that we're gonna use. Okay, and that should work. Gives us a decent amount of setback from the tile's edge. Now we're just gonna send this pretty much along here. I'm gonna add in as many straight segments as possible though, so we're not curving too much. This will either be an industrial area or maybe a residential area. I haven't fully decided yet, but either way, let's get our roads in and then we can figure that out later. All right, and it's a bit rough around the edges, but overall it's not too bad. It'll look better once we actually have something in here instead of just a blank road, but we have a whole lot more to develop, so let's move on to our next area. All right, so now for the second area, we're gonna do something similar to what we did with the frontage road over here, where we're just gonna run it parallel. So we're gonna try and mirror this road right here. Doesn't have to be perfect, we're just gonna try and get close. Then we'll mirror the train tracks as well, and we'll set all of this up, maintaining about 8 units. All right, and for the most part, that's looking pretty good. I'll need to remember to add more connections into the highway. Right now there's none. We'll definitely need some, but we'll also probably want one more connector arterial type road. Actually, we'll need two. One that goes along the edge of the map, another one that goes alongside this hill right here. So let's get the one that goes alongside this hill in first, and we're gonna slope up to here. I already created a little bit of a point. And we're going to try and make this a bit gentle. We don't want to do too much work here. So we'll add a road right at the top and we'll gently slope down. 5% isn't bad. I'll take it. And then all we're going to do is just snake alongside the contour lines and try to follow the hill if we can. Essentially the path of least resistance. Then we'll want to connect somewhere down here. And I don't know if these will be roads with lots of development on it. I see them more as important connector roads. But either way, we can figure that out later. All right, not too bad, not too bad at all. I always kind of struggle to plan on a very large scale. If it's a bit of a smaller scale, I do very, very well. I can think about in the future, I can think about this and that, but on a small scale, it becomes a bit harder. I'm looking at this curve and you know what? If there needs to be fixes after, I'll do it. For right now, I'm just gonna call it and say this will work. So now we have this kind of area right here. right near our oil industry and our train tracks. And if you want a beautiful view of the oil rigs, well, guess what? Here's your area to get that. All right, now before we send out our road along the edge, I'm just gonna break this and make this a curved road instead. I think it'll look a bit nicer because I mean, we can't develop past this edge tile anyways. All right, and that is pretty much all of our main roads done. They're taken care of now and we don't have to worry about them. Now let's move on to creating our actual grid for our first town. And before I do that, I feel like I should explain the way I see this area being developed is pretty much a few different grids loosely joined together over time. So I'm going to try and mimic that when connecting all the different towns in this area. Based on all the land we have to develop on and considering the hills, I think we could probably get 3 to 5 towns easily. And of course, our best friend, the road maintenance truck, is jamming up traffic. Well, guess what? It's probably going to get much, much worse here in the future once we have all these towns here. I was thinking we'll have to add in some proper highways soon, but I don't want to do that in this episode. There's still some fixes we can do here though. So I added a 3-lane asymmetric road to the highway that felt like was backing up. And it's because we have a direct external connection. I mean, they're both external connections, so I don't know why this one's getting so much more traffic over the other one, even considering our cargo port. There's a lot of passenger traffic here. When I click on them and see where they're going to another town. So I don't know why this town is favored over wherever the other town is behind us. It's not really working though, and I feel like the jam is going to get pretty bad. So maybe we'll add another 3-lane asymmetric and we'll try and get this good until the next episode where we actually build out our highway. So let's add in another 3-lane asymmetric along here, and this should give a turning lane for the people coming into the town. And yeah, that should work for now. I'm gonna try and ignore this, otherwise I'll get too fixated on it, and I'll try to fix it only to have the next episode rebuild the entire highway. All right, so I think this is the area we'll save for last because it's gonna be the most complex and require the most amount of time. It's very hilly, and I'm also picturing it as an industrial area, so it makes sense to me to start somewhere along here. I don't really imagine our hill being valuable in terms of land, so in terms of development, it probably wouldn't happen right away or even very soon, and we're just trying to get this town started out. Really, all of this land is probably low value land. We're right beside polluting uses, or right beside noisy uses. This isn't very high value land. I think because of that, we're going to try and build something of a standard grid along this area. The pollution, noise, etc. would all bring the land value down, and that lower cost means developers would probably come in, break this land into much smaller plots. That way buyers aren't scared by the high prices, and probably most of the workers in this area would be on the lower end of wealth. So with less money to work with, it makes sense that you'd purchase a property out here because it's kind of what you can afford. And you probably work in the area too, either at some of the factories or the port or even the oil industry. And that's not to say that any of those jobs would be paid poorly. It's just to say that not everyone in this area will be making loads of money. All right, enough with my lengthy exposition. I'm going to send a road right through here and connect these two areas up. We'll have a different town on the left side and then a different town on the right side as well. The right side will be the more poor town and the left side will be slightly wealthier. Maybe they're managers or something, I don't know. All right, and this gives us Butler Junction. Let's rename this to just Butler. It's a lot easier to say, less of a mouthful. And we're going to start building our grid. For the grid, I'm thinking we'll go 8 up and 12 over. All right, and here we have it. So far, at least, definitely it's definitely the grittiest grids of all time. I don't know. I don't really have anything nice to say about this, so I'm not going to say anything. Instead, I'm going to try to improve it. And one of the ways I see to improving it is right in the center. We can kind of swap this up, and instead of having a straight through road, we can just make it a bit more curvy and maybe turn the center into a park. So let's delete these 4 roads right here, and then we're going to need to grab whatever road we want to send through our town, essentially the main road, and then we'll curve from somewhere here into the middle of this road right here, and then we're going to turn on snap the guidelines and we'll curve right in. And I think we're going to need a bit more space, so actually that works right there. Yeah, that works for me. We can have 2 separate parks. They don't have to be anything fancy or crazy. No, I've changed my mind. I don't like it. Instead, I'm going to give a bunch more space. So let's go up and then roughly about halfway and then over again. There we go. Okay, that is much better. That is much better. I was trying to sell myself on the way it looked before and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Now I can sell myself on this. And then to improve this just a bit further, we do have this kind of hill right here. So I think we could send one of these roads just along the side of it. I think we're going to start by placing a road right along here as kind of like a guideline road, and then we're just going to curve right in. And then I'm going to try and play with this just a bit more until I can finally get something that I don't absolutely hate. Okay, redoing this road, and this time I'm going to connect it into the actual kind of connector outside road. And I like that a bit better. It makes it a bit cheaper. We don't have to go all the way up the hill. Okay, and this is essentially the final grid for Butler. It's kind of very boring, but I guess in this type of area, this is just how it would be developed to keep costs low. So this is pretty much what we're going with. I think it's fine. Once we add in some zoning, we'll probably get a better look. Also, once we hit the parks and everything, once everything's actually developed, then it'll look nice. Then it'll look nice, at least real. All right, so with Butler done, let's move on to our next area. And I could see a few of the areas kind of following these contour lines right here. Again, the key is that we want 3, 4, or maybe even 5 separate grids that'll connect up after. And that way it's not a very cohesive feeling, which is really what I want. I don't want this to feel like one big mega town. I want it to feel like a bunch of different separate grids. And maybe these areas in the middle are slightly more upscale than, say, Butler. But either way, we need to start thinking about our connections. So we'll have one that branches off to the right, and that'll be its own town. Pretty much something like this. That should do the trick. It'll continue and go down and around. And then over here, we'll probably start on this side, and we're just going to try and follow that main contour line. All right, and then for our grid, let's maintain the 8, but this time we'll go 16 over because I do want these to be slightly more, I don't know, expensive properties. All right, so now I want to break up the previous grid just a tiny bit. So I'm going to find where this grid breaks, which is right about there. That way we can have some straight segments, and we'll kind of curve into our previous set of grids. That way it's not so perfectly boxy. All right, and that's how we ended up with Grove. Again, not a permanent name. If you got a better idea, let me know. We're gonna have to cut down on some of these connections to our main road, but overall, I think it's pretty fine. It looks pretty good, much better than Butler. Everybody hates Butler. All right, now with Grove done, let's move on to the next area, which is right up here. And for this one, again, we're just gonna try and follow the top of this hill as much as we can If we have to, we'll go off the sides just a tiny bit, but we want to maximize our development space and maximize our respect of topography, of course. All right, now I'm just going to build out a very similar grid to the one that Grove has, so there's not going to be too many differences with it. All right, and welcome to Sunnyside Dale. This is pretty much it, except for that little stub. And actually, we should probably send this road all the way through. Makes sense to have, a full through road. All right, and here we have it. These are essentially our 3 disconnected grids that we will connect soon, and it makes it feel kind of unique and different. I was gonna handle the rest of the green areas and get the roads in, but this has honestly taken so long already that I think I'll leave it up to another day. Now, we've got one more thing to do before we place all of our zoning in, and that is to build out our little fuel plant area. And I want to add this in before rather than after. That way, when the new residents come, there'll be tons of open jobs for them to, hopefully, as long as it's not too far away, commute to. So we're going to use our level terrain tool. I'm going to imagine that this line of the cargo port is kind of where we want to build out to. And so we're just going to stretch this all the way through and build out a massive big space for us to work on. Okay, it wasn't as massive as I thought it'd be, but now we'll just take our alleyways and just, again, try and match the cargo port as close as we can get. And then we just need to add our key walls in, and hopefully it won't be as rough as the last time that I had to add key walls. Okay, that was much easier. Now we're just going to take our level terrain tool and try and just push this back into the key wall itself. And that gives us something like this, so we can kind of just place our fuel plant wherever. I was tempted to aim more towards the left, but I think I'll just go right for the middle instead. Now let's grab an alleyway, and this will essentially act as a frontage road from our highway to our oil. And we'll just drag that all the way over. And we're going to place 2 things on here. 1, a really big parking lot, because I would imagine this would need a really big parking lot. And 2, some storage for our oil. Okay, and then we're going to remove the parking fee, and we'll also clean up the assets just a tiny bit. So we don't need trees here. I mean, this is a fuel plant. I would expect that trees would probably be a really big hazard. And we also don't want these parking signs or these giant lights, and that's just much better. Now I'm gonna run an alleyway on the left side of the building, probably also the right side, but I just wanna start placing some oil tanks. Hopefully there's some big ones that we can add in, and we're just gonna send this all the way, of course. Of course. I don't know why it's gotta be like this. And there was an easy solution all along. Just had to turn off pretty much all snapping. All right, now let's just fix up the terrain a tiny bit. All right, now we're finally ready to add in our industrial oil storage. And I kind of like these ones. They're a bit big. The only thing I don't like is that it doesn't fill the entire space. So it definitely has to be a mix of big and small. I think really we can just slap down a few of these and see how it looks. All right, that's pretty solid. The only thing that worries me is this backspace. I do want to have it filled. And I do know that there isn't good assets for the 2x2 specifically for a fuel plant. If we want to store some propane or some gas, I mean, these would do really well, at least from my knowledge or understanding, or at least the scale of this building. But there's nothing kind of like this. And I want that big feeling. So we'll have to reorientate the road and change things around a bit. All right, and I decided to go with something more like this. So I just changed the road, and this gives us an extra 3 units of depth, and we just unlocked our switch on. That is nice. I can definitely think of a good place to put that. Not this episode, but I can definitely think of a good place. I'm gonna use Move It to see if I can get one more in here. I feel like I could. Moment of truth. I don't think no, we're not even close. I don't even know what I was talking about trying to get one more in there. So I think what we can do instead is swap to a warehouse or a manufacturing factory. Maybe something kind of like this right here. Now, obviously this isn't going to be some separate manufacturing unit, but we'll treat this as maybe some administrative building for the storage or the oil storage. I don't know. But to solidify that, I'm going to get rid of all these extra assets and all of the branding on it. There we go. That's much, much better. The only thing that's going to bug me is the color. So let's grab one of our storage tanks and try and make them all roughly the same. And we'll also apply that to the building as well. And why did we get a red roof? I see. So we'll change that to gray. It's okay. We can work with it. All right. There we go. Now with our colors in place and our fences removed, I'm going to swap over to a tiny bit of detailing. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but honestly, I'm going to keep it. It makes it feel a bit more textured and just, I don't know, it adds another flavor. Okay, so I'm struggling between 2 things here. One, this green giant plot of land could just be like, I don't know, some sort of dirt or some sand, because I don't really want to have a bunch of storage tanks here. It just feels kind of repetitive, but I feel like the surface isn't going to look the way I want it to when we're about to find out. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I love the surfaces, and we are so lucky to even have these considering the asset editor isn't in place, but they're very repetitive, and sometimes it makes it kind of feel rough to add these in. So I think we're going to have to go with storage tanks. Yeah, you know what? Storage tanks will work. Maybe we can have this concrete surface that stretches all the way across. And I don't know. I feel like this can still work. It just doesn't have that kind of look that I wanted. I wish we had different types of storage tanks. And I feel like most of this stems from the fact that I've been looking at a picture, trying to get somewhat close to it with the assets that we have. And it's very, very challenging. One of the ways that I think we could break this side up, though, is by having these kind of industrial warehouses here instead. Maybe we could have like 4 or 5 of them, and we could just pull them really close together. And this could be, I don't know, some type of port building. I don't know anything about fuel plants or honestly cargo ports. I'm just doing this as I go. So if anyone has any information that they can share about how this stuff would work, I'm happy to learn. Okay, and after a bit of move it action, that's how it looks from afar. Yeah, I think it works. We're just going to recolor these to be all the same color though. And that color is a bland, boring gray, which I think works pretty well. We're going to do the same thing with our fuel plant. I don't see it being red. I see it being gray or even a light white, and that works. Then we just have this big plot, and I'm wondering what to do with it. Maybe it's some sort of storage or shipping area. Maybe we have oil tanks here and fuel trucks come and pick up the oil. I think we'll go with something like that. I think that could work. And you know what, while we're at it, we might as well add some around our oil facilities as well. We can have some that kind of make it seem like they're driving in, some that are parking, some that are reversed into it. I don't really know what they're doing here, but you know what? Anything to bring life to an area, I think helps a lot. See what I mean? It's not much, but it still does just help a tiny bit. Now, I removed all of our fencing, so we're going to add it all back in. Okay, I believe I replaced all of the fencing that I deleted. So now I just want to go through and stain this area up, make it feel dirty, make it feel like there's been some oil trucks, at least one or two, that's been through this area. All right, for a fuel plant, that's pretty much going to do it. I always loved the added touch of adding those stain decals on top of these storage tanks. It makes it feel so much more, I don't know, not pristine and perfect, and I love it. If you look around, you can see there's so many different decals, you can't even click anything. Anyways, we're finally ready to move on to Butler and get our zoning in. First thing we need to do is, if we're going to zone, I want to control it just a tiny bit. So I'm going to use zone controller and just remove zoning from all the streets I don't want. Then for assets, I think it's just going to be the UK residential pack. Honestly, they always provide the most homey feeling, and whether it's supposed to be kind of low income or high income, I always like how they come out. And so I can always rely on these assets. I thought about using just a plain North American, but there's just too many fancy ones that are very, very modern. And because this is a low income area, I want that low income feeling. And that's not to say that the UK houses are low income. I just think they work in a variety of contexts and situations. Now, I'm not going to try and plan this out too much. So let's just say we have a massive grid of residential right about here. Then down here, let's have some more residential. And we'll stretch it out, I don't know, probably both blocks, I think. Okay, now this one might shock you, but let's go with some more residential. Okay, now here's the unfortunate part. We haven't had commercial demand for a long time. I know how to fix it. I just don't want to. And I'm hoping that maybe if we just zone some commercial anyways, a few buildings will pop in. If I could have commercial anywhere, this is where I'd have it, essentially. And I'm going to zone a lot of commercial, hoping to just get one or two buildings in. If it does, I'm happy. You know what? That's fine. If it doesn't come in, it sucks. But honestly, I see this area having a bunch of industrial, like a bunch of it, especially towards the train tracks. And this is actually where I see most of our industrial happening, but I still want to try and get one or two commercial buildings in here. And if we get none, again, we'll just replace it all with industrial. It'll probably look much nicer and fit in more with the oil area anyways. All right, and before we continue or click play, let's grab a firehouse and a police station. And let's take a look at our options here. They seem to be a bit limited unless we use modular zoning blocks to make our own custom one, but I don't really want to do that right now. Too urban, too lame, too kind of just not North America, too weird. I don't know. I love this one. I think it's really nice, but we've already used it. So we'll go with our southwest firehouse. This one should do nicely. And because it's noisy, I think we'll actually orientate it towards the train tracks. Somewhere right about here should do, but I don't want to forget this. I don't think it makes sense to have direct road access to the train tracks. So we're just gonna fix this up. Easiest way to do this is just to replace the surface with any other surface, and it stops that kind of that stretching that happens. I can't find that surface, so I'm just gonna replace it with sidewalk, and that should pretty much do the trick. Now the only thing we're missing is a fence. I could see some potential accidents happening here, even from the best professionals, or maybe some crazy citizens. So we're gonna add a protective barrier right around here. And remember, we're right near the train tracks. Freight rail is coming through here all the time. That's why I used the industrial fence. I actually kind of like it, to be honest. But obviously, if you're in a more upscale area, then we wouldn't want to use it. Now, I need to remember every time I place a service to assign them to all of the districts because I will forget. And then finally, I just want to add in our police. And I think we'll just match the kind of theme we have going here. And we'll just use our UK police station. It feels very homey. I've seen police stations just like this in Canada. So this is what I'm going to use. And honestly, what better place than essentially on our main arterial or connector road, right beside our firehouse, loading onto one of our main roads. It's perfect. And honestly, I'm dropping the ball today. I totally forgot about schools. So we'll need an elementary school. And I think we're just going to continue the same theme. And we're going to use the UK elementary school. It's the one right here. I love it. It feels just like my elementary school and kind of like my high school. Now we're going to place this right about here on top of this, or I guess not on top of the hill. We're just going to kind of dig right through it. It's not a big deal. And then for high school, I think it has to go here because we're going to use the UK one as well. And yeah, it pretty much has to go here. Again, I love this asset. It feels so homey. And then we do have a bunch of upgrades for both of them that we could use, but I'll wait until we're a little bit more on the green. Right now, we're pretty heavily in the red. Before we click play, let's just add a few parks to incentivize people to actually move in here. Hopefully, it'll kind of spike the demand for this area until we get a little bit more of jobs and some commercial. So I think we're going to add a dog activity park. I like this one because it kind of feels simple, but also a lot at the same time. And I don't know, it's so much better than the other dog park. And then we need to add something more tame here. I don't want it to be like the Color Plaza or any of these fancy large parks, but a large playground could work. And I know if I lived in this city, the one thing that I would want is a skate park, because what else am I going to do with the rest of my time as a kid? There's literally nothing to do here. So the skate park would have been my lifesaver. And we're finally ready to click play. All right, let's see how this fills in. Okay, not bad. I see a few issues here that we're going to fix. And most of them are around the... Oh, we hit milestone 14. Okay, we're now a grand city. And we get money, which is really what we didn't need. Or really any of this. But we do get a bunch of new signature buildings. And that is exciting. Now, the problem that I wanted to mention was we have these massive lots here that are taking up an entire block. All right, so I bulldozed most of them. And I only zoned in half of the block at a time, kind of like that right there. And it seemed to fix the issue. I'm noticing we have a lot of hearse icons, and I forgot to add death care and health care. Wow. I am kind of shocked by my lack of planning for this city. I told you I didn't want it to be overly planned. I wanted to just kind of go in and just do it and have that feeling like this city was just put together overnight. Now, I think we're going to go with our crematorium, and we're going to align it right to this road right here. It's enough space from our school, but also it has really good access to a very important road that pretty much has great connections throughout the entire city. And I think it should work pretty well. Now, we'll also add in healthcare, and we're still going to continue with our UK theme. Everything else is either too grand or just too small for the size and scale of the city. The UK medical practice just feels right, and we're going to place it centralized right across from our park. Okay, and I would love to see some of these icons go away. It seems like some of them are popping away. I'm just now noticing our budget, negative 26,000. That's a pretty big jump. Somehow we lost a lot of commercial tax revenue. So maybe I don't know, I was thinking about dropping it down to incentivize growth. But I don't think that's a problem. Our local demand is pretty much a negative modifier. And yeah, I don't know. Negative $25,000. That doesn't give us much time to get ourselves back in order. Okay, so I'm going to do something I didn't really want to do. And that's to place a bunch of office down here. I'm going to consider that the office is actually commercial, maybe? Or maybe they're office buildings for the port or the industry. I don't know. maybe even the oil. I don't know. I don't want it to be like, hey, this is some fancy tech company, right? Because that wouldn't fit in very well with the town itself. But we can either consider this some form of commercial or, those administrative buildings for those companies. And I'm thinking we're going to move on from Butler for now. We'll come back in and we'll give this some time to, let everything kind of settle. In the meantime, we're going to zone out Grove and Sunnyside, I believe it's called. So most of this is just going to be residential. I do want this to be a bit higher in terms of, I don't know, how upscale it is, right? Butler feels kind of like a poor community. Grove can be a bit more upscale. So we'll have our southwestern low residential here and maybe a few stores. Well, I guess we can't have stores, can we? I guess we could have a few offices that can pretend to be stores. And we'll do the same thing with Sunnyside. And wow, I came to take a look over here because there was a bunch of traffic jams and yeah, it's pretty intense. I did a few fixes, nothing too crazy, just kind of cleaned up the intersections a bit, added a few more turning lanes. And I think this stems from the fact that there's only one entrance into the port. If you're coming this way, there's only one way to get in, and that's through this road right here. There's also no other roads that enter into the city boundaries, so I feel like these are things that need to be added. I don't know what I was thinking. I totally forgot to add the connections back in. I knew that would happen. I should have just done it right off the bat. This seems like a fairly good place to add one in, and we're just going to do a little bit of grading first. That way it doesn't come out too janky, so we'll slope all the way up on an angle. There we go, looking good. And then we should just be able to curve kind of into this, follow it down and around, and then connect right into the main frontage road and then the highway as well. Okay, now we'll need to add in a secondary highway road. That way we can alleviate some traffic and pressure from this junction right there. And then to do this, we're just going to parallel the rail and we'll come across somewhere around here. To get started though, I just want to connect to this and then come up about, I don't know, let's say 6 units. And then we'll just drag this along and that gives us our parallel segment. And from here, we're just going to try our best to follow the freight rail. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's completely fine. And that curve right there forces us to slow down, which is great because we want to be paying attention here. It's already kind of curvy. But either way, this highway should help so much. It should alleviate a lot of pressure, although I feel like our junction there is going to get worse, so we'll have to see. But it seems like we're doing a bit of work here. And most of this traffic could just be contributed to people moving in, but I have looked and I have seen that there is, again, more commuters just coming from one town to another. And how did I forget this? I'm going to add a highway connection into here. I'll keep it a highway segment just to keep things looking a bit different. Doesn't make sense that would be a sidewalk road. And I think right here is another opportunity to connect back into our highway and our main frontage road. So let's do a little bit of pre-grading. So we'll slope all the way up and then we'll take our highway and curve right in. And it seems like I just missed the mark with our grading. I think I'll just delete the, or smooth out the grading. And I think that should make it a bit better anyways. Now we'll grab our highway and we're just going to use the straight segment, come down until we can get 5%. That works perfectly. Then we'll just curve right in. There we go. And what is going on with our train connection? Pathfinding failed. I wonder why. What's the issue? Maybe it's this like it was last time, and no, it looks okay for the most part. It definitely looks a bit odd, but we can try and draw this in again. Okay, so I redrew it in and it doesn't seem to be solving the issue. So I feel like it might be this one then, because this is the other one. So, whoa, curve is too tight. Interesting. I wonder why it's saying that, because that curve is definitely not too tight. Let's try this again and we'll come right through. Yeah, the curve is perfectly fine. Pathfinding still failed. Okay, I know the easiest way to fix this, or at least to figure it out, is to redraw in a new path. So we drag it down until we figure out why. Yeah, so it's failing right away. So is it these alleyways? No, it just fails when it wants to go right. Interesting. Or when it goes left. Yeah, when it wants to stay on the left track, it fails. So as long as we stay on the right track, it still works. But the second we swap, this is a weird one. Oh, there we go. So now it's even failing on the right side as well. This is perfect because now we can figure out exactly what the problem is. Okay, so it's good here, and it fails somewhere along here. Now, oh, I see it. There it is. There's our problem. It's this node is broken, and I'm wondering if this is actually due to using anarchy when we first put this in. It might be. So we'll just redraw this in, and then that should fix it. All right, yeah, and it seems like everything's working. I re-added back in our lines, and we're not having any path finding issues, so I'm going to chalk that up to anarchy and maybe a bit of weird road segments when we're using ground level and automatic slope. Okay, now that that's fixed, we can finally return back to our zoning. That was about 30 minutes of getting off track, so I want to finish this up. All right, it's been a day since I've been playing, and it's nice to come back in with a fresh perspective. It's definitely looking a bit rough. I can't wait to add some trees, but I want to connect these grids now because the whole entire goal was to have them feel disconnected, and I think we're pretty much there. Then I want to fill in some of the in-betweens to have kind of a uncohesive grid, which I don't know why, it seems right for this area. So we're going to connect these two in like that, and right about there should do the trick. Then over here in Grove, we have this through road, and I feel like that could make sense to connect right in. Can we get a respectable grade? 4% isn't too bad. What about, oh yeah, that's respectable. Perfect. Perfect. I love it. And this will allow us to add even more zoning too, and make it feel a bit more connected rather than disjointed. But I think I'm going to change this up just a tiny bit. Instead of going a full curve, we'll actually go straight a bit because this will allow us to build our grid kind of off of these straight segments, and then we'll curve in. And now we can curve right in, and this just makes building our grid out a bit easier. Okay, now unfortunately, if you're looking here, you'll notice there's a bunch of differences. And I was going to do a lot of fast forwarding through the zoning anyways, but one, our traffic is insane. It is insanity. But also, my game crashed, and that crashed OBS, which means I don't even know what happened to the file, but it's gone. All I did was change this road, make it a bit more straight to give more setback from the freight rail. And then I zoned in a bunch of industrial, like a bunch. The commercial obviously wasn't going to come in, and I wanted to add a bunch of jobs here before our economy tanked. Now, instead of negative 26,000, we're at negative 21,000, and we can deal with this. We've got about 2,700 residents and about 3,100 employees, so we're making some big strides. Overall, it's a lot of the same building, but you know what? I think this makes perfect sense for this area to have this massive industrial kind of a feel. The land would be super, super cheap anyways. I mean, given the fact that there's an oil industry right beside us. Now, I've added some parking, I've added some more office, and really nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary has been done with this area. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much this area. Now over here in Grove, I finished off the zoning. For the most part, I think it looks pretty good. The road that we were going to connect into Sunnyside is gone now, so we'll need to add that back in, but I'm worried about our money. But you know, it's fine. We only lost about 15 or 20 minutes worth of work. It's a bit frustrating, but yeah, it's okay. Sunnyside itself is pretty much the same as Grove. It's just a bunch of residential. There's mostly Southwestern with a tiny mix of UK, and I think it looks fairly decent. We had some paths in between some of the buildings. I was going to add a retention pond here, but then I forgot. Maybe we can still do it. It can be in their backyards. That almost feels a bit too fancy. Anyways, zoning versus plopping. I will always prefer plopping. I feel like you can make something nice with zoning, but overall, it was almost honestly more work than if I would have just plopped every single building myself, because I still went in with Move It and kind of off shifted some of the buildings, tried to make sure that it wasn't just, I don't know, so incohesive. Like you can see right here, I just randomly gave setback to some of these buildings to vary it up. That way it didn't feel so perfect. And yeah, this is pretty much it. This is pretty much it. Now, I want to add in some connections if we can get them. We've got 10,000. We got $10,000. That's not going to be enough. Let me try and get a road in here before we go bankrupt. So we'll grab right about here, try and curve kind of into this, and let's see how is that going to look, how is our grade going to be, and it's pretty intense, but if we wrap this kind of all the way around, we can get something that's not so intense. 5% is fine. It's a bit curvy though for my liking, but it's fine. And then we just need to, yeah, that's what I thought. I should have been quicker. Okay. So now I'm going to, I don't know. I don't really want to drop our services because once we start messing with our tax, if we increase, say, our commercial tax, our commercial businesses are going to start leaving the city, and that's only going to make things significantly worse. If we increase residential, there's usually not too many problems with that, but we also want to make sure our household wealth is increasing, because if we don't increase our household wealth, then no one will spend money at the commercial stores, and the commercial stores won't give us any tax revenue. It's actually pretty intricate compared to what it used to be in Economy 1.0, but maybe I'll just sit here and wait until we can add this road in. Okay, and for the most part, I finally fixed our budget. I didn't really do anything too crazy, didn't really mess with the taxes all that much, but what I did was go in and just remove a bunch of natural resources. Our tile upkeep was pretty high compared to what it is now, and part of this kind of feels like cheating, but the way I'll justify this in my head is by saying that I will never use any of these areas for whatever natural resources they had there now. And I think that makes me feel just a bit better. We can see that our tile upkeep is 1.6 million or 1.7 million pretty much. You know, I also dropped our services, specifically our parks, to 80%. And that seemed to help just a tiny bit. So I didn't do anything too dramatic or too massive. Our roads are still at 60%. They've pretty much been there since we added in our park maintenance, or our road maintenance, sorry. And in an attempt to fix this, I've given turn lanes for a lot of these areas. I don't expect it to fix traffic like a lot. What I expect to fix traffic is a proper highway through here, which is what we're going to add soon. I think this should improve it just a tiny, tiny bit. I'm noticing we're having issues with waste management at our geothermal power plant. That's dropping our efficiency down to 51%, and that's rough because that is reducing the total amount of power that we actually make. And that means we are importing, what is it? Yeah, over $100,000 of electricity every single month. And this is eating into a big portion of our budget. So we have two options. One, we can assign our landfill to the geothermal power plant itself. We can add the garbage truck depot. Or actually, third option, we could add another recycling plant or landfill. I don't really want to do that though. And I can't afford this right now either. It seems kind of manageable until we realize that we're going to go in debt doing this. But I think, honestly, I think we have to. Yeah, I think we have to. Let's just do it. And that should give us more trucks, which means more access to areas. And then we'll also just set this to only serve the geothermal power plant for the time being. Then I'll let it run for a second. And hopefully that should fix some of our waste management issues at our power plant. And just like that, we were back up to 100% efficiency, which means now we're exporting power and now we should be making money. I want to see the service trade go down from the red into the green. There we go. Yes, finally. Okay. So, and look, we're back up to 25,000 and now we're at 9,000. Okay, so some weird things happening with our budget, but you know, it's the ebbs and flows of life, I guess. One day you're making 6,000 an hour and the next you're making 25,000. So now we removed the operating district from the geothermal power plant itself. And finally, we can finish off adding in our roads here and connecting all of these areas together. It only took about an hour on my part from when I wanted to initially add in this road. But you know, we have money now and we seem to be making a decent bit of money. And what did I want to do here? I believe I wanted to grid this area out. So we'll go up just a tiny bit. For this road, we will just curve directly in, but we'll try and make sure it's a nice, gentle curve. And then from here, we'll just connect these right in. Perfect. And that gives us a fair amount of space to build out our grid. So 8 units long, that means we want to go up about 8 units, and then to the left and right, I believe it's 16, but it doesn't actually matter. We will go up 10, just so we can have a little bit more room because this is a pretty hilly area, and we want to give City Skylines a bit of extra space to work with. And from right here, we're going to connect another road into. So we'll build out a small straight segment here. Something like this at 5%, 4.7%. Well, that works for me. Then down here, we're going to go straight up. But first, we'll need to delete these two pieces because I don't want to break any nodes. And then we're just going to curve along the contour lines and try and get a nice smooth connection in. And then just down here, we need to reconnect this back up. And perfect. That gives us a bunch more space and it makes it feel more connected rather than so disjointed. Although they still definitely do feel different and separate in their own ways, which I kind of like. Okay, then right beside Butler, we have this hill. And I'm thinking we can find a common height, say, I don't know, right about here. Kind of drag this over. And then we can slope up. And then we can send a road up here as well to give access to building in this area. And then we can send this straight just a little bit more, and we can curve right into this through road. There we go, and that connects those two grids up and gives us development space for a bunch of new houses here. What I would like to see though is one more connection into this kind of cul-de-sac area. Otherwise, it would just have one single road. So I think we'll start a connection from right about here, but in order to do this, I want like a kind of a road that helps align us. So something like that. And then over here, we'll need to do a tiny bit of leveling to get these kind of on the same page. Otherwise, our road might break just a bit. And then we're going to send our road straight. Then we'll curve right into this road. And now down over here, we want to connect into the one that has that through motion. So we'll just do something like that. And that works pretty well. And I can actually see this as kind of like a shopping center. Now, we're going to send our alleyways through here, but first we're going to do a bit of leveling. So we'll grab our level terrain tool and just pull kind of our entry point and have that kind of go around, trying to keep it simple. And there we go, something like that should do. Then we'll take our alleyway and just snake our way through here using the continuous curve tool. And then we'll add one little cul-de-sac down here. And there we go, that's this side done. Now we want to get the other side done as well. And we're going to do something very similar. So we'll start by leveling out this point right here. And same thing over here. Make sure our entry points are nice and flat. Then we'll just snake our way through with our alleyways. All right, and looking a bit odd, but you know what, it should work. Then I could potentially see some development happening kind of along this hill right here. I'll probably lock a few of them to simulate the idea that not all of these houses are leveling up and looking super nice. Some of them are kind of like eh. I'll probably lock the ones closer to the end. So we're going to snake our road down this contour line. All right, and there we go. We have a bunch of new areas. We could say that this kind of hilly space is just either too hilly or maybe it's just green space. Who knows? Either way, we've got a bunch of new areas to add in a bunch more development, and hopefully this solidifies our positive budget. Now I went through and kind of just set most of the zoning for where I want it to be. So now it's just time to fill it in. And all of that gives us Brightwater. I locked most of the buildings towards the end of that hill. I think this is really where it's going to stay for now. I don't think there's enough land value here to justify anything more. But what we can justify is some sort of commercial district or commercial center right here. I think it's a big enough lot for it. It's fairly flat. And because of that, we can use a good amount of different assets and have a giant parking lot because, I mean, come on, why not have a giant parking lot? So we'll separate this into two sections. Our first section along this road will be all car-orientated uses. Then to build out our next section, I left just enough room for an alleyway or two, and that'll lead in kind of to like a parking lot that'll be at the back of these buildings right here. And because this is North America, we need a massive parking lot. In fact, we need two. I wish I could get both of their centers to line up with the alleyways, but I'm not going to redraw anything, so this is it. We're trying not to overplan this. We'll send a road all the way around it. And then we're going to grab our southwestern commercial assets, specifically the ones with a lot depth of 2. And we're just going to place these kind of all around here. All right, and that gives us something like this. We're going to remove the parking fee because we should not be getting parking fees for private property. And that's pretty much it until we detail it. You know, for a North American shopping center, it's fine. Lots of parking. And of course, our garbage is piling back up at our geothermal power plant. So I'm going to deal with this off camera every time it pops up. And now let's transition away from this area and finish off our last area for the entire episode. And it's been a long one, but honestly, we've got a lot done, so it's been nice. Let's add in our zone for this entire area. All right, now that we have money again, let's go through the area and just make some small improvements. And honestly, I think we might even have to add another recycling center. We'll see. If it bugs me once or twice more, then yeah, we'll add it in. Now, I want to add in some parks because right now we only have, what, 2? We have 2 parks, and they're both in Butler. So let's grab something small, maybe like another playground or 2. We can just kind of sprinkle them throughout here. So we can have one right about here. Okay, this time I'll place it in the right direction, right about here. I'm taking a look at our park view. Oh my, this is just awful. We're red everywhere. Okay, we'll have another playground right there. Then over here, we can have another large playground. And really, it feels like the asset should be orientated that way, but I guess not. Still lots of red, so maybe we can add in a dog activity park somewhere right about here should do the trick. And it feels like no matter how many I place, I can't get rid of a lot of this red. We'll also need another medical clinic because right now we only have one and it doesn't even have any upgrades. So we'll put this somewhere like right about there. It should be fairly a good place, I guess. Then we'll just assign it to all of our districts. Then we'll want to see some improvement in connectivity, and we have this big through road right here. It connects up both the towns and goes through to our frontage road. So we might as well connect this to our other frontage road and then to the highway itself. All right, and there we go. And wait, where's all the power? I'm gonna pause this. I'm hoping it's not a game-breaking bug. And it's power station overload. Oh, it's because the garbage is piling up. I've done this like 4 times now over the course of like 20 minutes. So I think the only way to fix this is to add another recycling plant. I really don't want to, but I kind of just have to. There's not much of a choice here. And it wasn't even operating in the geothermal power plant. I forgot I set it to only the city so that it would clean up the school. But either way, it doesn't matter. Let's find a really good spot for a recycling center. And after factoring in the small amount of air pollution that the recycling center will have and the car traffic, I think somewhere right here should be pretty good to build out our recycling center. And then this road will need to be pulled back probably. Yeah, it will. So I'm going to delete this. And then I want the road to come from the center of the recycling center, like right here at this point. Pull it down and connect right in. There we go. It's a bit of a rough grade there, but honestly, I'm going to work with it. Okay, and there we go. Now, please solve our waste management issues for at least another few episodes. Now to let this play. All right, now show me the money. There we go, finally. Yes, okay. And I was talking about show me the money, but honestly, I need to show the game some money because we need to buy these 4 tiles. Otherwise, this kind of feels like cheating. And it's 1.2 million and 75,000 per month. We don't even have enough, so we're gonna have to take a loan. Let's grab about, I guess, 1 million. Then we'll buy the 4 tiles that we need. Right away, negative 11,000, but you know what? We needed this. There was no other way to fix this. I thought this was a bit weird, but we have 20 vehicles in use out of 15. Oh, they're dump trucks. Oh, okay, never mind. So they're just transferring waste between facilities, I believe. Anyways, back to our last minute fixes. I wanted to fix this up. It was pretty much the only thing left on my list. So we're going to delete these 2. And we're going to have the middle road connect into these 2 instead. And these 2 will just go straight through. Just feel like it makes a bit more sense. And that's why I avoided it in the first place. It's a significant amount of grading in order to get this in. But I do feel like it is worth it. It was either that or curve around it, but I'm worried about all of our freight traffic. We will just increase the width just a bit. And then right here, this one's super simple. Curve road tool, we'll curve right in at a 90 and perfect. All right, and that's pretty much going to be it until I can fix 1, our commercial demand, and 2, our budget. I just don't want to build up more of this area. I did want to get it done though, I did. But I think we'll just have to save it for another episode. We just have too many problems contributing to this. We have our highway we need to fix. We have our vacant commercial lots that we need to fix. And there's just so many issues right now that are piling up. And I don't want to keep plopping offices in industrial. You know, I want to have some variation here. So off camera, I'm going to have to get rid of every single vacant commercial building. That's going to be a challenge. Reason being is that a lot of these commercial properties are ones that I put a lot of effort into detailing, and I don't want to lose that detailing. Like for example, you can see we have these black commercial lots, and it doesn't seem like a lot of detailing was done until you zoom in and you see that there's this little park, all the surfaces were stretched, you know what I mean? It's just very small things. So I'll have to do it though, I don't have a choice, but I'll do that off camera sometime in the near future, and hopefully that'll get us to a better place. Now we've got a lot of detailing to do, specifically for our park, for our school, our industrial area, and everywhere else should be pretty easy. Not too much, maybe some paths, some decals, and some grass, but let's jump into it. All right, about 2.5 hours later, we are done. I really tried to give each single lot some attention and make it feel like, I don't know, this area was really heavily lived in. It's not a very clean area, it's not a very new area. And for the most part, I like it a lot. It was a lot of surfaces that took a lot of my time up, but it was definitely worth it. And because of that, I think this area does feel a bit different than everything else. And I love it. So now, let's do a quick before and after to see what this turned into. And that is officially a wrap. This took surprisingly a lot of time. I figured zoning would have helped me save some time, but really, I think it all came down to those mid-episode budget issues. For some reason, the commercial tax revenue just tanked like crazy. Either way, I still had a lot of fun building this out, and I'm looking forward to developing this area further in the future. But first, I definitely think we have a few other fires to put out. As always, big shout out to our YouTube and Patreon members for helping to support the channel, Ganger and Mihai B. I'll be uploading this saved to Patreon if you'd like to check it out for yourself. And if you haven't already, a like, subscription, and comment go a long way, and I'll see you in the next one.